What did you learn at an embarrassingly late age? I thought everyone's mouth got itchy when eating bananas. Almost 40 years old and find out I'm somewhat allergic to them. For the longest time I always heard of sports teams drafting people, and I'm tall, so as a kid I was constantly afraid I'd get drafted for the state basketball team just out of the blue. I thought it worked like a military draft. I learned this wasn't the case when I was like 10 to 12. That I needed glasses. At age 21 my friends were hassling me about being dyslexic because I kept getting words mixed up. Second year at uni. Until then I had just been reading by looking at the shape of words and guessing the words based on the context and wider story. I had been reading this way for years and survived uni before finding out my prescription was plus 1.50. The optometrist said it was amazing I hadn't noticed when I put the glasses on. Everything was in 4K Ultra. I can now see individual letters. That narwhals are real. I thought they were cute mythological creatures until I saw a brooch a friend had and asked if it was part of the company's mythological line. She asked me if I thought narwhals were myths, like unicorns. I laughed and said of course they are. I was 35. That you can flush used toilet paper. Parents taught us as kids to throw away the paper in the trash can for fear of backing up the toilet. Wasn't until college that I realized my parents were accustomed to that method because they had bad plumbing where they grew up in Central America. Dude, I'm Mexican, so I'm aware that my family in Mexico doesn't flush their toilet paper. However, my roommate in college never got the memo that the US has better plumbing and we can flush the toilet paper. It was the most awkward conversation when I had to explain this to him and ask him to stop making our bathroom smell like poop. I was almost 30 when I realized that traveling uphill does not always mean you're traveling north, and similarly rivers can run north because they aren't going uphill. I'm not normally that stupid. That puffins are in fact not extinct. I had a 3rd grade teacher misinform me. I found the truth as a teenager in an embarrassing group setting where I was quite confidently wrong. I had always thought eggs were considered dairy on a food pyramid. I could have sworn that's just what I was taught. But nope, they're poultry. I guess because eggs and milk and cheese are in the same place in the grocery store, my mind just decided they should be considered dairy. Rotating tires doesn't mean spinning them around in place like you're in a Fast and the Furious movie. It means you swap each of their positions on the car. For example, you might move the left front tire to the left back position and vice versa, and the same for the right. Wasn't until I was 21 when I drank lactose-free milk and didn't go sit on a toilet for an hour that I realized I'm lactose intolerant. I thought it was normal to poop constantly after drinking milk. That Quicksand is real. I honestly thought it was made up in movies to scare people and was like an urban legend that kept getting passed around the internet. I was 25 when I watched a documentary on a survival experience where a lady was in the jungle and got trapped in some quicksand. I paused it and started ranting and raving about how dumb it was when my husband finally showed me his phone proving that quicksand is actually legitimate. The stupidest thing about this is that when I was 11 I watched half of a scooper truck get sucked in by quicksand and completely repressed that memory. Well, it doesn't work like it does in movies. So movie quicksand isn't real. Also, people around a lot of water have generally experienced it to some extent. When you stand in the sand on the edge of the ocean and you sink a bit and it takes quite a bit of effort to free your feet, or you step in a mud puddle that takes your shoe as sacrifice. It's the same mechanism of action on a bigger level, where you are nicely submerged to your thighs or waist and you can't use one foot to free the other foot. Don't struggle. Generally recommended you attempt to tilt backwards, so you'll end up lying on your back where you can then slide yourself off of the quicksand. But quicksand doesn't kill on its own. You can't even really ever get fully submerged in quicksand. It just traps you. It's the other stuff that gets to you while trapped that will kill you. Something I just figured out about 2 weeks ago, and I'm extremely embarrassed about this. When in the shower I hated how when washing and shampooing my hair the water would fall on my face. I just thought that was a normal, have to contend with problem. About 2 weeks ago it finally dawned on me. Tilt your head back. I wonder how I made it through life so far some days. That was very embarrassing to have to admit this. I learned, when I was 46 years old, that my pet ducks we had as children did not in fact fly south for the winter. Every winter, my entire family laughed at me when my mom let that little fact slip after she had a few too many glasses of wine. That horse poop contains hay that comes from the inside of a horse. For the longest time, 24 years, I thought that someone would put hay over horse poop to cover it, similar to picking up after your dog. I never really thought about it much beyond that. One day, I was backpacking and wondering why someone would cover up horse poop in the middle of the wilderness. Then it clicked: horses eat hay, horses poop hay. I felt like an idiot that day and still do. I was 20 years old when I learned that salt lamps are indeed made of salt. I always thought that it was plastic carved into a rock-like shape. That yogurt thing, where you're supposed to take the little fruit side and bend it over so it pours into your yogurt. I figured it out for myself at 30, but found out it was already a thing. Before that I was jamming my spoon in there thinking what gives with the tiny fruit side. I thought that Chuck Norris wasn't real for the longest time. I didn't know that chicken and collard greens is considered to be stereotypical black food till I got to college and everyone got mad about someone recommending it to President Obama. The cost of steak. My parents kept us shielded from the cost of everything growing up. When we'd go out to dinner we would always ask how much the bill was, and my father would say, "Don't worry about it." I know he did this to keep the burden off us as kids. However, I would go out to dinner with my friends' families and order steak and lobster because I liked it. Meanwhile the rest of the family would get burgers or chicken. I had no idea I was consistently ordering the most expensive shit on the menu and was extremely embarrassed to learn this as a teen. That when my mum kept telling me to lift the seat up when I go for a piss, that she meant the ring part, not the lid part. Younger me thought that when the lid was down it looked more like a seat instead of a toilet, and never once considered that when I actually sat on the toilet I sat on the other bit. I used to say, of course I'll lift the seat up otherwise I'd wee all over it. Exactly, she would say. I just thought it was a not very funny joke that people said when they were going to the toilet. I mean, who would piss on the seat? Lit. I must have been in my early teens when I finally caught on. This is going to make me sound stupid, but I used to think shower puffs were air fresheners. We only got them in toiletry sets at Christmas and never used them. My mum would hang them off the top of the towel rail, so I thought it was supposed to make the room smell nice. I only found out what they were really for last year. I swear I'm not stupid. When I was 13 I answered my grandmother's phone and someone asked for Stella, and I told them there was no Stella there and hung up. That was the day I learned that her name is not Grandma, but rather Stella. So I once saw a movie where someone cried and their mascara was carried down their face, which made it look like black tears. I didn't know what mascara was as a small child, so I asked my mother why the tears were black, and she told me that if you are really sad you cry black tears. I never questioned it until I was about 16 and thought of that memory. That hot water making cleaning dishes 100x easier. I was 18 when I learned that. Before that I just washed them in cold water and got annoyed when some stuff was difficult to take off. I still wonder how I got so far without knowing such a basic thing. Hot water makes life so much easier. I had a roommate that absolutely dreaded getting out of bed in the morning. He hated getting in the shower for some reason. Long story, but talking with him one day it finally clicked. He had never learned that you can let the shower warm up before going in. His whole life, he was 24. He just turned on the water and jumped into icy cold water. It was a life-changing moment for him.